All Affinity apps have alignment functionality that lets you easily align and distribute layers, as well as unify their properties such as scaling and rotation. I'll show you a couple of examples. In my composition here, I have 5 triangle layers with images clipped inside them. The distribution of these is rather random at the moment. I may want to align and distribute them equally instead. First, I need to select them. Because they are all next to one another on the Layers panel, I can do this by selecting one, then holding Shift, and clicking the last triangle layer to select them all. Now I also need the Move tool selected to access the ability to transform these layers. I can use V on the keyboard for this, or I can select the Move tool from here. I can then click on the Alignment button up here on the toolbar. On the pop-out dialog, I have both horizontal and vertical alignment options. The first 3 buttons perform alignment, whereas the 4th button performs distribution. Clicking through the alignment buttons lets me preview the effect of the alignment. I can always click the active button again to return to the original layout. For this workflow, I'll use Center Vertical Alignment. The Align To drop-down lets me specify the basis for aligning the layers. Selection bounds will use the current bounding box of the active selection. In this case, though, I want the alignment to be absolutely central to the document bounds, so I'll choose Spread. At this point, I also want to space these layers evenly. To achieve this, I can use the Space Horizontally button. The default distribution does a good job here. I can always uncheck Auto Distribute, then modify the spacing value manually if I wish as well. This lets me easily tighten the spacing between these layers. I'll then click Apply to commit these transformations. Having vertically aligned and spaced my layers how I want, I now need to line them up horizontally with the middle of the document. Because these layers are separate, trying to align them horizontally will collapse all of them on top of one another. To treat them as one layer instead, I can group them first. With the layers selected, I can use Command G on Mac, Control G on Windows to achieve this. Now I can go back into the alignment options. Then choose Align Center up here and click Apply. I'll show you some additional options on the alignment dialog using another example. I've got 8 composite butterfly layers on this document. As before, I'll select them all first. Then make sure I have the Move tool active. On the alignment dialog, you will see these Make Same options at the bottom, allowing you to transform all the layers to the same width, height, and/or rotation. For example, I could enable height, then check Maintain Aspect Ratio for proportional scaling. All layers are now being scaled to the height of the first selected layer, which is the smaller yellow butterfly. If I wanted to change this base layer, I could click Cancel, then hold Option on Mac, Alt on Windows, and click the layer I want to nominate, Butterfly 4 in this case. A thicker bounding box will appear around the layer on the document view, and the layer will also have a lighter overlay on the Layers panel. Now, if I repeat the Make Same operation using height, the layers are now all scaled to the height of this layer instead. I may also want to change the rotation of all the layers based on Butterfly 2, so I'll hold Option on Mac, Alt on Windows. Then I can also click on the layer within the document view, as well as the Layers panel. Now I'll use the Make Same feature again, and choose Rotation this time. Then click Apply. I'll move to a final example so I can demonstrate how using nominated layers with the Distribution option can alter its behavior. I'll select these 5 ellipse layers. Switch to the Move tool, then enable Space Horizontally. The default behavior is that the furthest left and furthest right layers remain in the same position, and all layers in between are distributed evenly. Nominating a layer replaces the furthest right layer with that nominated layer. For example, if I were to nominate the second ellipse, then use space horizontally again, the other layers have now been distributed based on the position of this layer and the leftmost layer. So the layers to the right have been moved over to the left and spaced appropriately. If I cancel this and nominate the fourth ellipse instead, we will see the same behavior. Now the first and fourth layers remain in position, whilst the other layers are transformed and spaced. There is one final behavior to highlight. Holding Option on Mac or Alt on Windows, then clicking either of the space buttons, we'll use the position of the nominated layer and the furthest right layer, rather than the furthest left layer, resulting in a much tighter spacing between the layers in this case. I'll apply the transformation, and as a final tip, I'll show you how to center align these layers without grouping them. I already have the Move tool selected, so now I can just enable snapping on the toolbar up here, and click-drag the layers into place until I see both the green and red snapping indicators. These will tell me that the layers are now horizontally and vertically aligned to the center of the document. So I'll release the mouse button. And there we go. That was a look at how to use the alignment and distribution options in Affinity Photo. Thank you for watching.